Barron Trump finally speaks out, silencing critics who accuse his father, Donald Trump, of orchestrating the 6th of January attack on the U.S. Capitol. With certainty and precision, Barron delivers a compelling response that leaves everyone in utter disbelief. What did he reveal? How did he defend his father? Watch as he confronts the media, political experts, and detractors in a way no one saw coming. The night was thick with tension. Rain drizzled softly against the White House windows as Barron Trump sat in his dimly illuminated room, scrolling through an endless stream of headlines. Donald Trump to blame for the 6th of January. Insurrection, fueled by Trump's rhetoric. Will justice be served? His jaw tightened. For years, he had remained quiet, observing his father endure relentless criticism. He had been only 14 when it happened, a child, voiceless and powerless. But now, he was 18. No longer just Donald Trump's son. He was a man standing in the wake of history. A notification flashed on his phone. Breaking news. Protesters gather outside White House demanding justice for the 6th of January. He exhaled sharply. They wanted justice? So did he. Barron rose from his chair and turned to his bodyguard, a towering figure with a cold, unreadable gaze. Set up the press conference, Barron commanded, his voice unwavering. The bodyguard hesitated. Sir, your father didn't authorize. I don't need permission, Barron interrupted. It's time I spoke. That night, America had no idea what was about to unfold. The next morning, the White House press room was overflowing with journalists whispering among themselves, shocked by the sudden announcement. Barron Trump is speaking? One murmured. He's never even given an interview before. Cameras flashed as the young Trump strode onto the stage. He was tall, composed, but his piercing blue eyes burned with an intensity no one had witnessed before. The room fell silent. He stood behind the podium, gripping its edges, as if anchoring himself. A deep breath, a long pause. Then he spoke. For years, I have watched my father be blamed for things he never did, Barron began, his voice steady yet charged with conviction. I have remained silent, as falsehoods spread like wildfire. But today, I speak. Today, I set the record straight. A murmur rippled through the audience. Even the most hardened reporters leaned in, intrigued. My father is not a perfect man, Barron continued, but he is a man of integrity, a man who loves this country more than anything. And on the 6th of January, he did not incite violence. He urged people to protest peacefully. His voice grew firmer. But what has the media done? They have distorted his words, painted him as the villain. You want to talk about justice? Then let's discuss the truth. The room was electrified, but outside, unseen forces were already working to suppress him. Within minutes, the internet erupted. Barron Trump defends his father in historic speech. Young Trump takes a stand against media deception. Is Barron Trump the future of American politics? Supporters cheered. Critics fumed. But the battle was far from over. At CNN headquarters, a panel of political analysts debated fiercely. He's just a kid, one scoffed. He doesn't grasp the gravity of the 6th of January. He's 18. Another countered, and he just made more sense than half of Washington. Meanwhile, in the Oval Office, President Donald Trump watched his son on the screen. He said nothing, simply clasped his hands together and exhaled. He's fearless, Trump murmured. But as Barron exited the press room, his bodyguard rushed to his side. Sir, we have a problem. Barron frowned. What kind of problem? The bodyguard's voice was low. Threats. Real ones. Barron's stomach tightened. He had anticipated resistance. But this? Who? He asked. The answer sent a chill down his spine. The same people who tried to silence your father. His heart pounded as the bodyguard led him through the White House's private corridors. The air felt heavier now. Are you telling me someone wants to silence me? Barron asked. his voice sharp but controlled. The guard nodded. We've intercepted messages. Some people are very unhappy that you spoke out. Some of these threats, they're serious, sir. Barron halted mid-step. He thought about his father, Donald Trump, who had spent years battling accusations, taking the blame, standing against the world's judgment. Now, it was his turn. Do I have to stop? Barron asked. The bodyguard studied him for a moment. Number, but you have to be careful. Very careful. Barron clenched his fists. Then let's keep going. I won't be intimidated into silence. Outside, the media was in a frenzy. Some were awed by his speech, while others twisted his words, desperate to discredit him. That night, as Barron sat in his room, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. A text. If you care about your father, you'll stay quiet. This is your only warning. Barron stared at the screen, a cold shiver running down his spine. The next morning, Barron sat across from his father in the Oval Office. Donald Trump studied him carefully, his expression unreadable. You did something huge yesterday, Trump finally said. Barron nodded. I had to, Dad. I couldn't let them keep lying about you. Trump leaned back, exhaling. You know, when you speak, people listen. You're not a kid anymore. You're making history. Barron hesitated. I got a threat last night. Silence. A dangerous silence. Trump's jaw tightened. Show me. Barron handed him the phone. His father's face darkened. As he read the message, he remained quiet for a long time. Then he looked up, his blue eyes burning with determination. Listen to me, son. You are a Trump. And in this world, that means people will try to tear you down. But we don't back down. Ever. Barron swallowed hard. So what do I do? Trump stood up, placing a firm hand on his son's shoulder. You keep going, but you do it smarter. At that moment, Barron understood. This wasn't just about a speech. It was about something far greater. And he wasn't going to stop. The world was still reeling from the shocking revelation Barron Trump had delivered. The footage proving his father's innocence had gone viral, sparking outrage, disbelief, and a desperate scramble from those who had once controlled the narrative. But Barron knew this was just the beginning. The battle for the truth was far from over. As the White House remained under heightened security, Barron and his father sat in the Oval Office, watching the chaos unfold on the news. President Trump was composed, but Barron could see the gears turning in his mind. He had been through countless battles, but this one was different. This time, his son was in the crosshairs. You understand what this means, don't you? Trump finally said, his voice measured. They won't just let this slide. Barron nodded. I know, but the truth is out. They can't hide it anymore. Trump exhaled, rubbing his temples. The question is, what's their next move? At that moment, Agent Carter entered the room, his expression grim. Sir, we've intercepted a classified communication. There's a coordinated effort to discredit the footage and label it as a deepfake. They're moving fast. Barron clenched his fists. Of course they are. They have no other choice. Trump nodded. So we get ahead of them. We make sure the American people know this is real. We need to get experts, technologists, forensic analysts to verify the footage publicly. Agent Carter hesitated. There's another problem, Mr. President. The source of the video, the man who gave it to Barron, wasn't just some rogue whistleblower. He was part of an intelligence faction that's been monitoring the deep state for years. And now, he's missing. Barron's stomach tightened. Missing? Or dead? Carter exhaled. We don't know yet, but we do know he wasn't working alone. If he had access to this, there's more out there. We just have to find it before they do. Trump turned to Barron. You up for this? Because once you start down this road, there's no turning back. Barron met his father's gaze, unwavering. I was never going to turn back. Within hours, the world was in a frenzy. Major news outlets were divided, some rallying behind Barron's explosive revelation, others trying to cast doubt and twist the narrative. A new conspiracy theory was making rounds, that Barron Trump himself had been manipulated, that he was a pawn in a greater game. The opposition was fighting back with everything they had. Meanwhile, Agent Carter was assembling a team of specialists to authenticate the footage. Cybersecurity experts, Video analysts and AI researchers were called in to examine the evidence. Every second mattered. But as the investigation progressed, disturbing reports began surfacing. Witnesses who had spoken out about the 6th of January were disappearing. Key figures in the intelligence community were resigning without explanation. A chilling pattern was emerging. Someone was erasing the trail. Late one night, Barron was working in his private study when his phone buzzed. Another unknown number. He hesitated before answering. "Barron Trump?" a distorted voice asked. Barron's grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you're up against. Meet me at the old train station on 4th Street. Midnight. Come alone." Before Barron could respond, the line went dead. He stared at the phone, his mind racing. Was this a trap? A setup? Or the break he needed?